From analog.
Hi, Jim. You have a great signal up here. You're 5.9 plus.
Digital.
We are everywhere you want to be. This is the CQ Blind Hams Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the July edition of the CQ Blind Hams Techzoom. This is a meeting that takes place not over the radio, but virtually. So it's almost like a virtual club meeting, if you will, where we discuss topics or have presentations given to us. And of course, it's done from a blindness perspective. We're part of the Blind Hams group. You can learn about us by going to www.blindhams.com and availing yourself of all the wonderful information that we have up there. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and go through the hosts and crew here and check in and see how everybody's doing and what everybody's up to. Joel, W0CAS, what's shaking over there?
Well, we're getting into the summer, the doldrums of summer, sweating it out, not just sweating to the oldies. But, we're leaving this weekend and going to Myrtle Beach, and we're going to be presenting the Chris Miller Elmer of the Year Award to Ronaldo KN3Q's wife. We got a chance to get away from the flower business for a little while, so we're going to head over Sunday and meet with Mary Beth and give her Ronaldo's plaque. So that's what's happening in this part of the world. Back to you.
Oh, wow, that is so awesome. Yeah, it's so sad to have his untimely passing. We just started hearing him get active on Blind Hams, and he was helping a lot of people, and then one day you get this bad news. So I'm certain that his wife is going to be appreciative of this award. Robert, NC5R, what's happening in Texas? You guys recently had a visitor came in off the Gulf.
Yes, we did, Julian. We had a visitor and brought us lots of rain. One of our transom windows leaked. We got that repaired today, so it's one thing after another. We're also headed out of Texas to North Carolina on Sunday by way of a few stops along the way in Arkansas and Tennessee. So going to be traveling, probably won't be around quite as much as I usually am, but maybe I'll be around some. That's the plan anyway. But things are going well here, and I'm looking forward to the Techzoom. Thanks for having me. Back to you.
Oh, thanks. And I'm sorry about the window leak, but I'm glad to hear that that's really all that happened. It certainly could have been worse. So looks like Carolina's a place to be, huh? 2 people headed over there. And Angela's usually there in the background, but if he happens to be near our microphone, let's see if he wants to say a word or two.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Joel's got some great questions there. Julian, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you.
Oh, and thank you for doing all the behind-the-scenes stuff and making us all sound good. And me, I'm Julian, N1CA, located in Woodland Hills, California. And, what have I been up to? Well, moving, really. I think I mentioned this in the last meeting that I was just in the process of starting a move, and now it's all done. So we're just getting settled into the new QTH here, and I'm really enjoying it and having an awesome time. So, just want to put in a good word here to spread the word about blindhams.com and especially our YouTube channel. We're trying to get the subscribes and the likes and the views up, because if we can get that number up past a certain threshold, it'll mean that we can monetize the channel and use the proceeds to buy radios for Blind Hams. So, share it on social media, share it with people. By the way, it doesn't just benefit blind people. Sighted people benefit from our content as well, because we're doing everything in a verbal way. Sometimes it's a little easier to understand what needs to be done when something's being explained verbally versus, oh yeah, over here, touch that, push this. So basically, the more subscriptions and views, the better it is for us in our efforts to try to monetize this thing and help Blind Hams get new radios. So Joel, are there any stats or anything you want to report for the channel?
We are down a little bit on the views this month. Google's smart. they'll send you big numbers, make you think you're doing real well, but that's minutes. They'll say like you got 3,000 minutes.
Mm.
Well, you need 3,000 hours within a 365-day period. So I did my multiplication, division, and all that stuff, took my shoes off and used all the toes and realized that we're down from last month. That we were doing about 198 watch hours last month. I think it's down at 178 this month. So we're losing a little bit of ground. We need to catch up.
Yeah, it's summertime. Everybody's out and about. Understandable, but yes, when you're sitting at home with the air conditioning and it's 120 degrees outside, that's a perfect time to start watching our channel and get caught up on stuff and help bring up those numbers. All right, so without further ado, we'll get to the discussion. In our last meeting, we had a list of questions that we were asking the participants, all in an effort to just try to get to know each other better as hams. And if you'll recall, we had a bunch of them. I think we had, 12 or something of them or more. And we decided to break the list in half rather than ask them all at once. So we asked the first 5, and today we're going to do the last 6. So what I'm going to do, since I know that one of our participants, Robert KN6UVD, is with us, and he's going to have to leave us shortly because he's got another meeting he's got to attend. I want to see if Robert is up for answering the questions first. Is that good with you, Robert?
Sure, I'll do my best.
All right. So these are just real simple questions. It's just stuff about your feelings about certain things or operating procedures. And, we know that you're new to the hobby, but you have done some operating. So let's see. And you've had some experience. You had some really good fun at field day, made a bunch of contacts for the club. So that was good. So, then the first question is, if you're able to be on HF, do you log contacts? Well, I guess in this case, the scribe logged your contacts for you, and that's about all the HF experience that you've had.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, if you get on HF, do you think you're going to want to log your contacts just to keep a record of who you talk to?
Yes.
All righty. And you probably haven't had a chance to really learn much about these, but you've probably heard some people from every now and then using Q codes like QSL, QSY, things like that. Have you learned any of them, and do you find yourself using them when you're talking on FM, like repeaters and such?
No, I haven't used many of them. I did just hear a new one a little bit ago, and I'm guessing I can figure out what it is. I believe you said QTH earlier, and I'm assuming that means your new house. So, or something on that regard.
Yeah, QTH is where you live or where you're located.
Yeah.
So,
I was close.
so, and some people say the home QTH, or if you're out and about somewhere else, you might say my QTH is for the guys who are in North Carolina. Might say QTH is Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I need to get on the radio more and use some of them, but so I'm getting there.
I agree. We're gonna keep working on that.
Yeah.
So one thing I know you do is check in the nets. So how many nets do you check in on a weekly basis?
Currently, I check into 3 nets a week.
All righty. So, of the modes that you've operated on, and I know that you haven't had as much experience, but do you prefer VHF, UHF, which is basically your handheld radio, what you've been doing? That's both VHF and UHF when you're checking in the nets and things like that here locally, or HF, which is what you did at field day?
Yeah, and it was my first time actually on HF at field day, so that was quite a bit of fun. But the handheld radio is my preferred method. So.
Alrighty. And if you had to use one radio for the rest of your life, which one would that be?
I think it's on the way.
Yeah, and I suspect there's going to be a lot of similar answers to that question.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us really do enjoy that radio. Robert is going to be getting a THD 75 soon.
Yep.
It's on the way.
Sweet.
So here's the last question.
Okay.
What do you wish somebody had told you before you got your license?
Hmm. Well, you gave me a lot of info beforehand, so I mean, I think I don't know. I think I had a good idea of ham radio before I got the license. Um, so I think I knew what I was expecting. So
Okay, no surprises.
yeah.
That's good.
Hmm.
All righty. Well, thanks for answering those.
Yeah.
And
Well, thank you for having me.
no problem. And I hope that you'll join us more often and definitely come up on the note a little more often too and make yourself
Yeah.
heard there on Blind Hams.
Yep. We'll work on it.
All right. Thank you.
All righty.
7-3. Joel, and we'll put you up next.
Well, I still don't have an answer for one of them. I'll
All right.
make it up when I get there.
So when you're on HF, do you log your contacts?
Yes.
Do you use the Q codes when you're on FM versus HF?
I try not to because I think they were basically to help CW ops abbreviate things. That's where it originally started. But I know a lot of people still use them on HF, and a few people use them on UHF, VHF. But I try not to.
All right. How many different nets do you check into in a week?
Now this brings up a question. There's a certain net that runs 7 days a week. And then there's a net like Saturday morning net. It's only once a week. So nets that operate more than once a week, I check into one of those, and then the Saturday morning net. So 2 nets if we do it that way, or if we go the other way, 8. It depends on how you look at it.
All righty. So what is your favorite, VHF, UHF, or HF?
I talk more on VHF, UHF on the Blind Hams network. So I'd say VHF, UHF.
And if you had to use one radio for the rest of your life, what would it be?
The one I use every day is the TYT MD 9600 mobile.
Ah. And is there something you wish somebody had told you before you got your license?
This hobby ain't cheap.
That's for sure. All right. Well, thanks, Joel, for answering that. Robert, NC5R. Want to take a crack at these?
Sure, I'll give it a shot.
All right. So on HF, do you log your contacts?
I do not, but sometimes I wish I did. I bet it'd be fun to go back and look at who I talked to 20 years ago.
True. Do you use the Q codes on FM?
I do sometimes. I'm kind of like Joel. I prefer not to, but that QTH, QSY, some of those just slip out every once in a while.
Yeah, they really have become part of the nomenclature. How many different nets do you check into in a week?
I check into about a dozen nets a week.
All right. And what is your favorite, VHF, UHF, or HF?
VHF, UHF has become my favorite, mainly because of the all-star mode as well as the other digital modes. It's pretty exciting these days how we can use our VHF, UHF radios to talk all over the world. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is. And if you had to use one radio for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I'm going to have to vote for the THD 75.
Yeah. Ding, ding, 2 for the 75. And is there anything you wish somebody had told you before you got your license?
Well, just today I heard some hams talking about how much they had recently spent on their equipment. And one guy said that ham should stand for had a lot of money.
Good one. All right. Well, thanks, Robert, for answering those.
Thank you.
And let's see. I guess I'll take a stab at them because I think I'm the only other host here. So, if I'm able to be on HF, do I lock contacts? When I have been able to be on HF, I did not. I was more into just talking to people and having the conversation in the moment and not worrying so much about keeping notes or things like that. But I agree. Sometimes it would be nice to be able to go back and say, "Oh yeah, I talked to this person on this day and in that country," and I'll remember which countries I've spoken to, but I don't log them. And as far as the Q codes, when I'm speaking on FM or for that matter, even a voice on HF, yeah, I use them. I totally understand that they were primarily meant to send shorter messages in CW, but I think it's like I said, it's become part of the nomenclature to the extent that it's just I'm not one of these Q code geeks that knows all these obscure ones, but all the basic ones, QTH, QSY, QSL, those kinds of things. Yeah, I use them. And nets I check into in a week. Probably 5 or 6, I'd say. And my favorite, I think, in terms of what I use most often, obviously, is VHF, UHF. It's what I've operated on most of my ham life. But when I have been able to be on HF, I enjoyed it as well. But especially now with the internet powered modes, the digital modes, the DMR, the All-Star, the D-Star, I definitely enjoy it a lot more. I started to get into these digital modes right before COVID, and I got to tell you, it's one of the things that helped me keep my sanity during the lockdowns and all that craziness. Is that I was able to reach out and talk to people and continue to make connections with people, even though physically we were kind of locked up inside for a while. And if I had to use one radio for the rest of my life, yeah, I'm going to have to make mine the third vote for the D75. It's an awesome radio. I've been enjoying it ever since I got it. GD77 is an awesome radio, and I've got a lot of use out of it, but it doesn't get used nearly as much now that I got the 75. And as far as what I wish somebody had told me before I got my license, honestly, I think I wish somebody had told me well before I got my license how much fun this hobby is, how rewarding it is, and how I should have never let code stand in my way. Because I remember as a kid reading a story, reading a book, and one of the characters was a ham. And I remember at the time thinking, boy, that sounds like fun. But when they explained how you have to know Morse code, that kind of for the longest time was a barrier. And I wish somebody had encouraged me to conquer that barrier long before I did, because look at all the fun I missed out on. So that's it for us, the hosts and crew, and Robert, who was here with us earlier. Anybody else in here that wants to take a crack at these? Go ahead and speak up. Say your call and we'll call you.
Well, fools I am, I'll do it.
All right, Johnny, here you go. So if you're able to be on HF, do you log your contacts?
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Do you use the Q codes when speaking in voice?
A little bit, but I might, but primarily not. I mean, I do a little of it because you ask somebody what his QTH is or something, but I don't use a lot of them.
And how many minutes do you check into in a week?
Well, since I'm not operating at the moment, I don't take any.
Oh, okay.
Well, I do take in the FCC that maybe a couple times a week.
Well, we got to get you on Blind Hams to check into those nets a little more.
Yeah.
And do you have a preference, VHF, UHF, or HF?
Well, my preference is HF. Is HF if I can do it.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm using a repeater phone, and so that's pretty good.
Yeah, repeater phone's a great app. So, if you had to use one radio for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh boy.
Even if you don't have it,
Well,
because in your case, I'll say that.
if I had a flex, that would be.
That would be your radio?
I think so.
Cool. And is there something you wish somebody had told you before you got your license?
Well, also, I don't know about. I got my license like in high school or something, but but it's a very costly hobby. I gotta say that. Can be.
Yep, it is. But there are a lot of other costly hobbies too.
Well, that's right. I'm not saying
It's
it's
good.
the only.
It's good to know hams are not the only ones. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
you can certainly put a lot of money into this.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for taking a crack at these. Anybody else want to speak up?
Come on, Alan. You know you want to do it.
Okay, shoot, Julian.
All righty. On HF, do you log your contacts?
I log all HF contacts and probably all DX contacts, like including satellite. I don't log VHF, UHF contacts unless there's something once in a great while. If it's a special one, I might log it because it's maybe a rare station. But all HF contacts logged.
All right. Do you use the Q codes on FM transmissions?
Very rarely. As we are all taught, I use the vernacular to speak on UHF, VHF because that's what we're taught to do. And but there are occasionally Q codes that I use. Probably the one I would say I use the most is QSY, and that it also depends kind of on where you are. Here locally, people use QSY on repeaters quite a bit, but that's typically about the only Q code they'll use. Sometimes QTH.
All right. And how many different nets you check into in a week?
Notwithstanding the FCC that we check into 5 to 7 times a week, I'll assume that that's just one net. Probably between 5 and 8 nets per week, depending on the week.
All right. And do you have a preference, favorite, VHF, UHF, or HF?
I got back into this hobby because I wanted to do HF. But that said, I really like all the bands, all the modes, all of it. So I don't want to say I really do love HF, but it's not all I do. And I do quite a bit of other stuff. So I'm going to say I really don't have a favorite. I just like it all.
All righty. If you had to use one radio for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That would be tough because I like HF and I like UHF, VHF, and all of that. And so I don't have a single mode or, an all mode radio. So that would mean I would have to miss out on something. But I guess probably my favorite radio, at least starting out, was the ICOM ID52. It's my daily driver. I use it every day. It has really good sound, and I'm a big D-Star fan, so I love that. But if I had to do it, I would really miss HF, I gotta say.
And last but not least, is there something you wish somebody had told you before you got your license?
So we've been talking about this question for a couple of days now, and so I've heard a number of people kind of chime in with various things, which all seem to be all the reasons that I've heard thus far stem from gripes that people have about the hobby, right? Either there's too many grumpy old men, or it costs too much, or all of that. And I just guess I have to say everything that I've heard negative that people have given reasons for what they wish they knew before they got into the hobby. I knew all of that stuff. Now, I don't know how I knew it because I started my journey like over 40 years ago and then stopped before I actually got my novice. But I knew all of this stuff. I knew it was expensive. I knew there was a lot of grumpy old men talking about what ails them. I knew all of this stuff. And honestly, when I decided to get back into it, a few years ago, none of that stuff scared me away because I'm interested in the radio part of it, right? The experimentation part of it. And, you can find those gripes in any hobby, I believe. Any hobby that you want to pick, whether it's amateur radio or anything else, there's always going to be sticks in the mud. It's always going to cost a lot of money. But, if it floats your boat, if it makes you happy, then do it. And so that's what I'm doing. So I'm going to say I don't wish I knew anybody told me anything.
A to the man. Yeah. I like that answer. All righty. So thanks for answering that, Alan.
What's QSY, by the way?
What's QSY?
Frequencies.
Yeah.
What?
Changing frequency.
Oh, really? I never used that.
Oh.
Yeah. So, like, for example, when I'm meeting up with a friend of mine, when we're far away, we talk on the repeater, and then when we get close enough, I'll say, "Okay, let's QSY to simplex."
Oh, okay.
And that's one that you actually, in many places, you'll hear that on repeaters and on VHF, UHF. It's a pretty common one.
Julian, I'd like to add one thing to my answers if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know I made the joke about, hams, about it being expensive, but after hearing all this, to be honest, the thing that I wish I had known about ham radio before I got into it was how many kind, generous, caring people I would meet, and just how creative a lot of these people are, and a lot of them have used their creativity to help me make my equipment accessible, and it doesn't get much more awesome than that.
Very true. It is true. And, adding, I guess, to my answer to that question, it's also really neat that you can go somewhere you've never been to before, you don't know a soul, and yet you get on that radio and you tune around, you find a local repeater or conversation in progress, and instantly now you have a way to meet people who are locals there and who at least have something in common with you. I really enjoy that.
One more thing too, and it's like you guys say, if you go to another country and you get operating privileges in that country, you can jump on the radio and you can find somebody in that country to talk to, and it's not really as much of a hobby or a service. What I've heard another podcast call it a hamily.
Family, that's cool.
A ham family.
Yeah.
Part of the family.
I agree. Or a brotherhood, it's just something that you instantly connect with, a community, and it exists just about everywhere. And it's an awesome, it makes traveling so much fun. All right. Is there anybody left among us that hasn't answered these that would like to? Well, then I guess that'll be it. Joel, before we wrap it up, is anything else that needs to get mentioned?
No, I don't think so. Other than we don't have a presenter for next month, or we don't have a topic. But if anybody has any requests or any ideas or any thoughts, if they have a presenter they'd like to hear, please email me, joelcase@gmail.com, or Julian. You can get his email address from QRZ, or any of the other hosts, Roberts, good on QRZ, Angelo, any of us. So if you come up with something, you got a presenter you would like to hear, just let us know. We'd be glad to try to make that happen.
Absolutely. We're open to suggestions. If you anything that would make this more interesting for you to participate and or listen to, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us, because after all, it's why we do it. We want to be informative and entertaining and fun to interact with for those who are able to show up and participate with us. So don't hesitate. Reach out to any of us, and we'd love to hear from you. All right. Well, once again, I just want to remind everybody about the Blind Hams website, www.blindhams.com. A lot of good stuff there. And one of the neat things on that site is the link to this meeting room. So if you hear that we're having a meeting, and we used to have them every second Thursday of the month, but now that's going to be depending on whether we get ideas or topics or presenters. So if we get something else, we'll be back next month. If not, we'll be back in a future month. But you can find the link to this Zoom room right there on the Blind Hams website. So we're always easy to find. And remember the YouTube channel. Give us more likes, views, subs, all that good stuff. And that'll be it. Thank you for attending here, or those who were here with us. And thank you for listening if you're at home listening after the fact. Have a wonderful rest of your summer, and 7-3.
7-3, everybody.
Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and visit www.blindhams.com.